Good evening and welcome to the post-screening dialogue with director for the film My Soul Drifts Like Upon a Sea of Trees. Thank you for taking time to be with us today. And we are very, very honored to have with us the director for the film, Heinrich Dahms, who has also taken time to be with us today. Now, Heinrich has written and directed and produced many documentaries and, to my understanding, a lot of commercials as well. And he has also made several feature films, including Between the Devil and the Deep. Now, before we start the session, I would like to invite Heinrich to do a quick introduction and do an opening statement. So Heinrich, over to you.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for showing the film on this festival. It's a great honor to be here and to be able to share this film with people who are interested in, obviously, in this very important topic. I think particularly this topic has become really important during the Corona period, when I heard from all my friends in Japan, for instance, that the suicide rates increased enormously there during this period, when people were even more isolated than they tend to normally be. So I'm hoping that somehow through your festival also more people are going to be able to see this film and hopefully find inspiration through it, to see that there are ways of dealing with one's personal isolation and loneliness, and find some kind of a greater hope in one's life, a future perspective, I would call it. I just wanted to say it right up front that, you know, for anybody who misses the film tonight, you can also watch the film on Vimeo at any time you want to. That's pretty much it for an introduction. So up to you.
Thank you so much. And before we start with the session, I would also like to throw it out to the floor. I would like my co-host to also activate the chat button. So for the audience who are with us today, if you have any questions for Heinrich, please feel free to put it inside the chat box. And then we will get Heinrich to address your questions. And great, that was a very great introduction, and you are spot on, because I think the world is going through very difficult times. I think everyone is feeling the strain mentally. It hasn't been easy for sure. And your film is extremely timely. And for a start, I'm very curious about the title. It's a very long title. It's quite a mouthful. My Soul Drifts Like Upon a Sea of Trees. Now, how did the film get this title, and what is the significance of this title?
I could give you a really short answer to that long title, because in fact, what happened was I thought about the title for a very long time. You know, during the editing process, which took me almost 2 years, I was cutting the film for almost 2 years. One of the things that I was constantly thinking about was title. What am I going to call this film? Should it be this? Should it be that? And the title, in fact, just came one morning. I think it was sort of in a dream. Like one morning I woke up and I said, that's the title of this film. So literally it's like that. But it's also inspired by the fact that, you know, we were up there in the mountains, in the forest, because Ittetsu, that's the monk who is the main character of the documentary. He has a tiny little temple up in the mountains outside of Nagoya in the Gifu prefecture. A very beautiful place with a river that runs by, a mountain, an ancient little shrine up on the mountain, or a little prayer place. I don't know if there's a technical name for that, but where he goes very regularly by himself to go and meditate, and also take some of these people who come to visit him and whom he helps. And they spend time up there in the mountains and in nature. So in a way, when I was up there with him at this little place, I was looking out over these forests, because it's a very, very natural part of Japan where we were, with this beautiful river that follows the valley. So perhaps somewhere unconsciously, that is what happened. There was also, you know, there's the forest in near Tokyo, which is called the suicide forest. And our initial idea was to actually film there as well. But by the time we went there first, my wife and I, who's also my producing partner, Michelle, we went for the investigation, the research, we went first of all to Japan. I think it was it was in 2015, and we only shot the film in 2017. I think we went and shot the film. So there was a year or two in between the two things. So we did visit this forest, this Sea of Trees, which is actually that forest. So it's known as a Sea of Trees, and I think subsequently a fiction film was also made titled Sea of Trees. So that name of that forest, of course, played in my mind as I was going through this whole process. And I think that, these elements, it just all came together, and one morning there it was, I had the title in my head, and it was a long title. So everybody said, ooh, that's a very long title. People are never going to remember that. Then I thought, that's the title of the film, anybody who's interested in this subject will just remember this title. And it'll also stand out because it's so long and different, I think. So, that's how we finally, also with the Buddhist channel, the Buddhist broadcaster here in Holland, we're very lucky to have a Buddhist TV also in Holland. So our partner in the Buddhist channel was happy with the title as well, and that became the title of the film. I've been doing Zazen meditation since I was at university, which is quite a long time ago, the 70s or somewhere. So the whole Buddhist meditation thing has been part of my life ever since practically, I was in my early 20s. So it's very much a part of my daily life. I meditate every day, and this whole spiritual, which I think is more of an Oriental concept, is very much a part of my life. I do Tai Chi. I've been doing Tai Chi Chuan since I was in my 20s. So it's another thing. So that whole Asian spiritual thing is very much a part of my makeup. So I guess it's all part of that. Does that answer your...
Yes. Thank you for your sharing. And from your description, it's very scenic. I can almost feel the environment that you were in back then in Japan. So based on what you were saying, the film came about before the title. So you had the idea to make the film before you actually came out with the title. So now, correct. Moving back chronologically to how you came about making this documentary. So what was it exactly that inspired you to make this documentary?
Well, I mean, as I said, I have had this interest in Zen for a long, long time. Secondly, part of my studies at university was psychology. So I studied philosophy and psychology at university. So that interest has always been there, and it's just also part of what I am, and it comes back in my work to a great extent. But what inspired me specifically to make this film was, I think it was in 2013 or so, we went to make that film that you mentioned, Between the Devil and the Deep, in South Africa, that was. And just before we went, I read, I was a subscriber to the New Yorker magazine. And in fact, I found a story about Ittetsu Nemoto in that New Yorker magazine of that year. And I thought, wow, this is really interesting. But I was just about to go away to make another film, and that usually takes about 2 years. So I've put it in my special drawer where I keep all my sort of pet projects and ideas. And when I finally finished Between the Devil and the Deep, I was, okay, now I have to come up with something new. So I went back to my ideas drawer and I went through it and I said, oh, wow, here's this amazing story again. And we got in touch, Michelle, actually, as I said, my partner, she got in touch with the New Yorker magazine and found the author of that article and a contact for him, for Ittetsu. And then we got hold of Ittetsu and, the dialogue started. And that was late 2014. And then by 2015, mid-2015, and by the end of 2015, we got some support from our local film fund for the project, for the research and the script writing part of the project. And then we packed up our stuff, and the two of us went to Japan. We stayed in Gifu, near to his temple, and we started spending time with him in his and he was very accommodating. He welcomed us there. He had a festival going on at that time, so we met a lot of the people that's part of his network there. And does that answer the question? So the story comes originally from this article in the New Yorker magazine. That's where the original inspiration came from.
Right. So you also mentioned about Ittetsu. So how was it like interacting with him? He must be a very amazing person. From what we can see from the film, very noble, and he has all these great ideas about what he's doing. What was he like in person, and how was your interaction with him like?
Well, okay, so firstly, he doesn't speak, or he says he doesn't speak English. I'm not sure whether he does or doesn't. He's more comfortable speaking Japanese. So we always had an interpreter with us, which was, which worked fine because we got used to that quite quickly. But he's an interesting character. He comes across in the film as a very noble, and he has a very noble element, but he's a very interesting character because he's not just that. He's a whole bunch of other things as well. He's a guy who had a very interesting background. He grew up as a sportsman. He was very, very enthusiastic, almost obsessive sportsman. He played basketball. He was quite tall as a Japanese boy. He says he drank so much milk because he was playing with the big boys. So the big boys told him to drink milk because he had to grow faster. So he says that made him grow really fast. So he spent his childhood doing that. And then he went and studied. And he studied philosophy as well. So the Zen hadn't entered his life at that point. Then he went and after university, he went and he worked. He first of all, he worked with a marine biologist to check the marine water around Tokyo. So that was his first job. And he did that for a while. And then he decided to go back to Nagoya. No, wait. Then a friend told him that they needed a priest up in the mountains in Gifu. And he said, well, what kind of a priest can I be? Because I'm not trained for that stuff. But he then went to this particular temple to train. So he spent the next 4 years in this temple. And then he came out of that after his 4-year training, and he was not quite ready to take on a job as a priest. So he started working in a burger bar, where he literally made burgers basically, but it was a vegetarian kind of a burger place. So anyway, he worked there, and he started to work with a lot of these chefs and burger flippers and people who were generally underpaid. And he found that a lot of these people were really struggling. A lot of them were very depressed. So he, it just became, he naturally started helping the people in this company that he was working in. And then he got this call to say, well, now they really need this little priest. This little temple is going to ruin because they need a priest there, and this community inside this valley needs somebody. So he said, well, okay, I'm going to try that. So he then went to this little temple, and with the community there, they rebuilt the temple, which was apparently falling apart, and they built it into this beautiful little temple that you see in the film as well. And then he stayed on, and that was basically, that's kind of how he got there. And so he's an interesting character because he's been through a lot of different walks of life, and this whole caring thing, this helping people, is something that it happened to him. It wasn't as if he decided, well, I'm going to become a psychologist and I'm going to help people. As he described to me one time, he's kind of trying to work with other Buddhist groups outside of the Zen thing. It's not always approved, but he's trying to work so that, because he says that the Zen, I'm not sure that that this is an official statement I'm making. This is sort of a private statement he told me, that Zen is very much focused on his daily job is very much focused on helping people through dying into the next realm. into the spiritual world. So that's kind of what he does for a job. And then he started thinking also, you know, but what about all these people who are suffering, who are not, you know, they're not dead, you know, but they need help. So this was part of his inspiration for them for also using the skills that he's learned as a Buddhist priest to actually help people in this life. So that makes it really interesting also, your film festival, this Buddhist festival. And it's this life also is very important. It's not just about our passage out of this life into the next realm. It's also about how we deal with our lives in here, you know, before, how we develop our karma and our personal, you know, our personal value, and whether we're going to make that clean transition into the next realm. So yeah, I mean, to me, this was a very interesting stuff that I had not thought about, because my history in learning about Zen was Suzuki, you know, and what was the English guy's name? I can't remember now what his name is, famous for. But that was my background. So getting up close and personal like this was very, very interesting for me. And he's such an interesting character because he is multifaceted. He rides his motorcycle, and he goes sometimes dancing at night, you know, so that you don't see in the film, but he goes dancing with his friends. And when you come to his festivals that he holds for his well, I don't want to call them followers, but the people that he has helped, he has a festival a few times a year that's where they all cook together. They do yoga courses together, they do meditation together, they do chanting together. And it's a really amazing experience to spend this time with him and with these people, because you develop such a close bond. And his group of people that he sees regularly, they have an incredibly close bond. So he's a guy who's multifaceted. He's very interesting. He's got a little boy that's growing up, and it's beautiful because they live there. They've got a rice field in front of the temple that they work as a family and with the locals, everybody comes and helps, and they do the rituals there in the rice paddies. So it's all of that. That's his, you know, he's a very, very interesting, multifaceted character. And for me, it was a really good experience to see that lifestyle, you know, compared to our, you know, Western. I mean, my life is not really standard either because I make films. So it's also kind of a different kind of lifestyle. But still, when you see a lot of the people who use his empathy and his ability to connect to people and the world that he creates there to come into there, and you can imagine a lot of them come out of, you know, really hard environments and very insular environments. And this is such an amazing experience, even for us, you know, who are not exactly, you know, normal day-to-day workers. It was an amazing experience being there with him and with his people. So I don't know. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does. And it's
Very
good to share that piece of information, because despite us having some kind of background in the beginning of the film, when he was talking about his childhood experiences, you know, people close to him committed suicide and all that. But from what you just shared, it gives us a lot more in-depth background information into how he came about doing what he's doing right now. So for all that, we don't actually get to see in the film. So, you know, this session is very helpful for us to have that deeper understanding about the kind of person that Ittetsu is, and what prompted him to do what he's doing right now, which is all very incredible. So thank you so much for that sharing. And we also
can I just add one thing? I have to also give credit to his wife, Yuki, who's an amazing person and who really runs the temple and the community to a great extent. If it wasn't for her, she's incredible. She's very quiet. She just moves in the background, but everything that gets organized is her work. And, you know, you see her in the film a few times. It doesn't really focus on her, but she comes and goes in at the festival. She comes in, I think during the cooking session, during the festival, you'll see her moving in the kitchen and doing stuff there, but she's like the spine, the backbone backbone of this whole operation. Let's put it that
I'm
way.
sure she is. He must have some kind of support in order to do what he's doing. So yeah, that's a good piece of information as well. We wouldn't have known, but of course it doesn't come as a surprise. Having to do all that kind of things that he's doing, he definitely needs some kind of support. And it's good to know that his wife Yuki has been helping him. So thank you again for that piece of information. So I want to bring also the focus to the 3 subjects covered within the film. You managed to get 3 people to share about their stories. People who have had a very difficult time. How do you manage to convince them to share their stories? And was it very difficult to ask them to appear on the film and to, literally talk about the difficulties that they're going through? It must not have been easy for them. So how do you find them? And, how did you convince them?
Well, first of all, Ittetsu found them for us because, we wouldn't have known where to start. So these are all people that he knew very personally, obviously intimately, because of their past experience with him. And so he, first of all, asked them if they would be prepared to meet us, and then it was up to us to convince them that this was something that was, in their interest to do, perhaps. So I'm not sure what he said to them behind the scenes, but by the time we met them, it was very much up to us to basically win their trust. So each one of those people, there were 3. There was the girl Kana and the musician Moka, and the guy who lives very much in isolation, Mizuno. They were all characters who had very diverse and very different backgrounds. Yeah, it was a matter of talking. We had quite a few sessions with each one of them to try to get their trust, because the other thing that I just want to mention this as well, that when you make a film, generally, you see people, when you have a main character, you see them interacting with a lot of different people, and in the West, that's kind of normal. You just ask somebody if they're prepared to appear with your main character, and they'll usually say, yeah, no problem. In Japan, it's very different, because the privacy thing is very intense, the sense of people's privacy, and everybody is very cautious to overstep anybody else's boundaries. So these 3 characters made it very clear up front that, okay, they prepared to appear in the film by the time we got their trust, but they cannot have anybody else appear in the film, because that would just not be, it's not possible. They're not going to impose this whole thing on other people. So that was that we understood from day one, which is why when you see the film, it's very much concentrated and focused on the characters themselves, and not so, well, actually, Mocha's mother is in the film, and that was very kind of her to appear and actually to expose herself, and because that dialogue between Mocha and her mother was actually, I thought, very, very brave. The mother didn't know what Mocha was going to say and do, so when Mocha confronted her with some of her own issues and part of her, it was very touching. I mean, I was sitting there behind the camera with tears in my eyes. I was so moved by, because I didn't even understand what was being said, but I could just see, I could sense the emotions, of what was going on there. So it was just such a powerful moment for me, not understanding a word anybody was saying, but you could just completely read and empathize and feel what was going on here. And the mother was open, and that was beautiful. To me, that was beautiful. And afterwards, when we came back and we had all the subtitles, because that's how we edited, I could see, wow, this was so intense. And then also with the guy that day when he's with Ittetsu in that interview, when he's just heard that his wife is moving and taking his child away. It was I didn't know what was going on, but it was just like he just opened. We picked him up that morning and we took him to Ittetsu, which is from Nagoya to Gifu, was about 80 kilometers or something. So we drove there and we didn't know, because he was in a very strange mood and we didn't understand what was going on. And then we got there, and because he wasn't talking to the interpreter either. So we got there and wow, he just opened up, and it was like, wow. It was how amazing, how trusting these people are to be able to let us be there. And it was such a privilege to, I mean, I can't even say it's a privilege. It's just incredible that people are prepared to share their lives like that. So yeah, I mean, I can't remember your question, but I'm hoping that I'm answering your question somehow.
You are, but these are, stories that we don't get to see in the film. So this session is actually very helpful, very insightful as well. It's good to hear all that story, and we can totally see the touching moments between Mocha and the mother. And for you to come in to share how it was actually like in the background, for you to not know what they were talking about, and yet from the facial expression and from all the emotions, they don't even need words, so that's very touching to know. Yeah, we actually do have a question from the audience, so I'm just going to do that questions, and probably after that we can do a quick wrap up. So
let me just can I just add something to what I just said? Have you got a moment for that? Because what's interesting as well, maybe for those with a more technical interest in the filmmaking process, it might be quite interesting. So my son was my cameraman in this film, and I was actually directing and recording the sound. But what was really interesting is in that situation, for instance, in the two situations that were so powerful between Kazumo and Ittetsu, when they were talking about his child, as well as the one with Mocha and her mother, we were sitting there and I was literally tapping my son on the shoulder when I wanted him to pan from the one camera, because we only shot on one camera. So literally when I thought, oh, the intensity is growing on that character, then I would tap him and he would pan over. So literally we were navigating this whole thing from one character to the other with the panning of the camera on that sense of what was coming out there. So purely on an emotional sort of an empathy sense, which was very interesting, because then afterwards when we got to the editing and we had the subtitles, we could see that, it was perfect. It was just unbelievable how much you can learn from somebody without actually understanding the language they're talking. So that's an interesting little technical aspect about it.
Indeed, I think the whole film is about emotions as well. So in fact, it's in a foreign language to most of us who don't speak Japanese and rely on subtitles. In fact, when I realized that if you watch even without understanding it, I think it's just a very emotional film. So well done, Heinrich, on that treatment, So let's go straight into, we have an audience called Rachel Lim. And she's asking, she said, hi, Heinrich, thank you for this moving film. The monk deployed several methods to help other people in the film. Most are not traditional or rather very unusual. So how did these methods come about? Would you know? Or perhaps Ittetsu had shared with you like all these unusual methods that he's using to help these people?
So is the question about the methods that he uses?
Yeah. So all right, because it's unusual and all that. So how did these methods come about? Just wondering whether Ittetsu had shared with you on how he came.
It's actually really interesting. From what I gather, I'm sure he never told me that he read this and that in the other book, but as I said earlier, I studied psychology, so I know quite a bit about, the basic, the various schools of psychology and the background to. So it's very interesting to me to see how the techniques that he uses, and some of it is, I don't know if any of these names will mean anything, but there's some of it which is almost Freudian. There's some of it which is Carl Rogers' client-centered approach. He intuitively, I suspect, he's found all of these ways that basically are forms of empathizing with his, with his, let's call it client for now. It's not really what it is because it's, but let's use that word, in ways that resonates with a lot of the schools of psychology. He also uses cognitive therapy to a certain extent, without being a cognitive therapist. He uses that. So I recognize all of these different schools of psychology that he's using. Where he gets it from, I think just through experience. Maybe he reads books, about, I've never saw the books that he's got stacked in a corner or whatever. But there, I guess through his experience, he must have learned how to do this. And then, so that's only the one part. That's only the one-on-one kind of dialogues that he has with people, which, as I say, uses all of these elements that I learned about at university. But then he also has these other elements, like you see it in the film, the festivals that he holds, where there's a lot of interaction. They do stuff together. A lot of it is about getting rid of the people overthink. So a lot of his stuff is about getting rid of the overthinking and getting in there and dancing and making music. So, and then chanting, meditating, doing yoga, all of these things all of these non sort of cerebral kind of activities that he introduces, because he believes that we need to find our childish self again. And that's another element that's really important about Ittetsu. He's very much in touch with his child. So he can actually go out there and just start dancing. You see that in the film. He will dance like a child. And he's not shy, he doesn't pretend that he's the great grand Buddhist sitting up on a pedestal. He'll go in there and dance, and he'll sing and he'll hum and shoot, whatever, he'll do it. I think that's part of what makes people really comfortable with him, because, people, it's very hard to connect to somebody who's an authority who sits on a pedestal, because you're going to always be a little alert and cautious about what you say to them. And can I say this? With Ittetsu, there's none of that. You go in there, you're another person. When he dances, you dance. You feel free to dance, because you're not thinking, oh my God, is he judging me? He's dancing, so hey, I can dance. So all of that stuff is part of how it's all an integrated kind of a system. And that's, and then when they come to help with the planting and harvesting the rice, that's also part of that whole thing. And when they cook together, It's all very much, it's a very holistic way that he deals with his people. So does that answer that question?
Yeah, it looks like he also harnessed the power of a community, like, everyone comes together and everyone helps one another. And I think that that's also part of what he was trying to do as well, to form
exactly
a support system. Yeah.
Breaking the isolation. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Community is fundamental for him. Yeah.
That's very great sharing. Thank you so much. We are running short of time, so I think we can conclude the dialogue here. Would you have any closing message for your audience? Any takeaway at all? If they watch this film, what kind of takeaway, or what kind of message would you like them to take away from? Perhaps for your viewers.
Well, since I made this film for those who feel lost and isolated, I think perhaps if anybody like that is going to be watching this film or is watching this, I think it's very important to understand that it's very hard to break your isolation. It's incredibly difficult, because once you lock yourself into a space, it's incredibly hard. But this film, I think, shows three characters who were on the verge of suicide, and actually some of them have tried it and were incredibly isolated and found a way to get out of that. And it's very, very, very important to not give up and not say, well, I'm useless, because nobody is useless. You just haven't found yourself, and all you have to do is to find a guide who can help you through this. And there are people out there. There are a lot of people out there. There's Ittetsu. He will welcome you in his little temple in the mountains. So anybody can go, literally can go to him. You just have to get in touch with him. If you want, you can do it through this festival. They can get it from me if that's where you want to go. But there are a lot of people, and it's important to get out there and not allow yourself to give up, I think, in a way. So yeah, there's that. You know, I think that's the message of the film, that there are ways to live a beautiful life, regardless of your situation, more or less. And then once again, let me mention this again. You know, for those who have missed the film, you can give the message that you can watch the film on Vimeo, vimeo.com. It's there. You just have to type this long title in and you'll get there. I think that's it very much, Elaine. Thank you very much for this interview, and this once again for showing this film at your festival. I feel really honored. I wish I could be in Singapore myself, but it's not going to happen this year. You know, good luck, and thank you also, the organizers of this festival, for doing this, because it's so important, I think, for this kind of message to get across to those who, you know, who need it, and those who just appreciate this, the beauty of Buddhism, I think. So, well, good luck with the festival, and I hope it's going to be a fantastic festival.
Oh, thank you so much, Heinrich, for taking time to join us, and also for bringing us this very beautiful and very meaningful film. I think, like what we touched on earlier on before we begin the session, that this film is very much needed during this pandemic time, where I think a lot of people are going through very difficult moments. I hope it brings hope. I hope it brings some light to their life. And once again, I enjoyed the film very much. I think it's very meaningful. I think it's absolutely beautiful. So thank you so much for bringing us this film. And to our audience, thank you for joining us today as well. The film festival is still running, and you can still get your tickets to watch the online sessions from SISTIC. And there will be subsequent dialogue sessions for the next few days. So do watch out for the schedule on our website. And please join us for the post-screening sessions for Thursday, Friday, as well as Saturday. Thank you all, and have a good day. And thank you so much for supporting DRIFTS Have I Seen Buddhist Film Festival. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.